Welcome to the Women's Wellness Authority Body Literacy Series, a special 3-part conversation designed to help women understand their bodies and help the next generation never have to say, I wish someone had taught me this. Most of us were taught about periods, but very few of us were ever taught how our bodies actually work, what our hormones are doing, what a healthy cycle looks like, or how to understand the signals our bodies are constantly giving us. Through this series, we're changing that. Together, we'll learn how to read the language of the body, understand what it's trying to tell us, and explore how we can pass that knowledge on to the next generation with confidence instead of confusion. So come join me. In part 1, we're starting with the foundation, learning your cycle. Before you can understand what your body is trying to tell you, you first have to learn its language. Today, I'm joined by Julie, a fertility awareness educator who helps women better understand their bodies through cycle tracking and body literacy. When most people hear cycle tracking, they think one of two things. You're either trying to get pregnant or you're trying to not get pregnant. But what if tracking your cycle was actually something much bigger than that? It's really about understanding your body, recognizing patterns, but learning what your hormones are actually trying to tell you. Because your menstrual cycle is one of the ways that your body communicates with you. And yet, so many women, including myself, are not taught how to understand it. So, Julie, welcome back. Hello. Let's talk about cycle tracking. So, what I want to do first, though, before we kind of get into that, is I want to level set because there are so many terms floating around about cycle tracking, fertility awareness, natural family planning. There's all these different methods. Can you kind of talk about why that is? What maybe are the key ones people hear about? What differentiates them?
Yeah, absolutely. So with fertility awareness right now, I think it's a big thing around the internet because of the Natural Cycles app. A lot of women, particularly millennial women, I'm noticing women in the 30s and early 40s are very familiar with the app with Natural Cycles. We can start from there. Natural Cycles is an app. It's a fertility awareness based method. And that's the first term that comes to my mind is fertility awareness based method. This is the umbrella term, the overarching term for all fertility awareness methods, any type of cycle tracking that you write it down. You're using a fertility awareness based method. So there's a ton of different methods. Some of them are using LH strips. Some of them are using OPKs. Some of them are using basal body temperature, some cervical fluid, some
The app is doing all this?
Oh no, that's just one type, Natural Cycles.
Okay.
One type. There are so many types
Okay.
of methods that can use all these different things.
Okay.
Some methods choose a couple of these different data points. Some apps use calculations as well. And not all of the methods do use calculations, but some do. Natural Cycles, in particular, as a fertility awareness method, uses basal body temperature, so your temperature as soon as you wake up, and a calculation.
Okay.
So it is algorithm based. There's all kinds of them. There's natural family planning, which is I mentioned because a lot of people are familiar with natural family planning. They've heard of it. It's typically taught though by like the local diocese. The church teaches this to couples who are heterosexual and engaged or married. It's not secular and it's not taught to any of the queer community because it is associated with Catholic and Christian faith.
Okay.
So in natural family planning, there's a bunch of different types even there. And these are going to be words nobody knows, but there's Boston Cross-Check, which is a fertility awareness-based method. There's couple-to-couple league. There's Creighton. There's FEM, which some people are more familiar with FEM because they are accredited as an institution, but they're the Fertility Education and Medical Management, FEM. I should even give you my PDF to pull up. There is a big mind map of tons of methods. It's really overwhelming.
Yeah.
But people aren't familiar with all of them. They just know Natural Cycles because it's an app. They've heard of natural family planning because they probably heard someone who used it but became a parent. And then everyone has heard of the rhythm method too. The rhythm method is a fertility awareness based method, but it is only a calculation. It's based on like cycle length. It's based on a 28-day cycle. It's based on a 14-day luteal phase. So it's then based on ovulation at day 14, and it calculates when you shouldn't have sex based on that cycle length. So,
Not consulting the body at all.
right,
Just
not consulting at all.
okay.
There's also like cycle beads where it's literally a necklace. It's a 28 bead necklace and you count the beads and they're different colors. So in times of fertility, quote unquote, supposed fertility, the beads are white to represent cervical fluid. They're red.
Yeah, it just sounds like a way for you to sell a necklace.
Well, cycle beads are a very old, ancient tradition of cycle tracking, but as we develop and our cycles fluctuate and change, and we're under the influence of so many different exposures to chemicals and things in our environment and foods that we eat, we're so different. We can't just count on beads, but people still use cycle beads. So there's so many types of fertility awareness based methods to choose from.
Which is the one that you use?
Originally, when I first began charting my cycle about 11 years ago, I read Toni Weschler's book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility. And I used her method, which is just called TCOYF, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, for a long time. It's a symptothermal method, which means that we are using the symptom, cervical fluid, and our temperature, so thermal part, basal body temperature, to determine fertility on a daily basis. There's no calculation. We look at these signs every single day. Now, the method I am certified to teach is called cycle mapping, and it is very similar to what I know from Toni Weschler. It's also symptothermal, cervical fluid, basal body temperature. It's also no algorithm or calculation. We do have an optional calculation that makes it even tighter rules on it, but I don't use that personally. And we look at our fertility signals, those two, cervical fluid and basal body temperature, every single day. It's about waking up every day and making a new decision based on my fertility that day. Just like you hear in your marriage, love is difficult. I wake up every day and choose to love my husband again. I wake up every day and choose to follow my goal, which is to avoid a pregnancy. I wake up every day and remember, well, I'm avoiding pregnancy. My biodata says XYZ. I am going to decide the rest of my day accordingly.
And your biodata is you listening to your body based on the cervical fluid and the body temperature.
Yep, those are our two pieces of biodata. And part of using a method is that you must record it or else it's meaningless, right? So I record it on paper and then I have that biodata to look at on my piece of paper and know the parameters of my cycle, that cycle, and all my previous ones. And then I can know my parameters for that day. So if I'm going to be deciding about intimacy with my partner, I can take a quick look. I don't even have to look at it now because once I've charted the data, I know it in my head what I'm doing for the day. But then I can make a decision about intimacy, whether it's to have unprotected sex, whether it's to use a backup method, or whether I just want to abstain, I don't want to deal with it. I make it from a place of information.
What I think is interesting about this, right, is then this is a method either to not get pregnant or get pregnant, but it's also for women who have regular cycles, irregular cycles. It creates hormone awareness, symptom tracking, and it allows you to understand your body better, right? So instead of just relying on a digital tool, which I'm not shaming anyone who does that, you are actually reconnecting with your body and using your body's signals to have a better understanding where you're at, which I think is really interesting and sort of brings me to something maybe a little bit bigger. So one of my missions for Women's Wellness Authority is to help women reconnect with themselves, because I think that we have been taught to not listen to
Yeah.
signals that we get
Yes.
from our body. We are taught to just push through how we feel, symptoms that we might have, ignoring those signals, or thinking like discomfort is normal. But cycle tracking to me feels like the complete opposite of that, right? So can you talk about how learning your cycle can actually help women reconnect with themselves?
Yeah. And this
How
question,
empowering is that, by the way?
it has transformed my life since I have learned it. Because what's beautiful is, of course, we're tracking our fertility. We're tracking our menstrual cycle. We're tracking if ovulation is happening. When is our luteal phase deficient? Is it robust? How are we doing? We're tracking all of those things that are related to our sexual and reproductive health obviously, but less obvious is that we can track whatever we want with it and find correlations. So if I'm experiencing something that could be related, let's say I'm tracking breast tenderness, I will know if I track that every day if it aligns with anything in my cycle and I can make a correlation between those things and adjust. Then things that people think are unrelated, you can do the same thing. You can track the digestive issues, you can track migraines, you can track anything really and start to understand, is this a cyclical symptom? Yes or no?
Around the time that X, Y, or Z is happening. And that can help
Mhm.
inform you, right? Like, so if it's earlier in now, because I feel like I'm an expert now with all this
Right.
education work on, if I'm in the follicular phase and maybe I'm getting a migraine at that time, maybe it's the hormones that are working at that point. So it's maybe not my progesterone, it's something's up with my estrogen or my hypothalamus or
Yes, that's exactly right.
like, it gives me more clues. I'm not gonna, like, diagnose myself, right? But I can become my own advocate because then when I go to a doctor, I can say, "I wanna check X, Y, and Z," and they may, you don't need to do that." And you're like, "Well, actually, I do because I've been tracking my cycle for the last 4 months, and I'm getting the same symptoms at the same time every single month."
That's right. That's exactly right. It's putting power back in your hands so you can advocate for yourself. A lot of women that I know, and myself included, we struggle with physicians because they don't want to test for things that we think are important. This gives us a lot more ability to and confidence to be more assertive.
Mhm.
We can be more assertive and say, well, I hear you that you're saying no. And I really believe in this because of the tracking that I've been doing. So if you refuse to order it, will you please write that down in your notes? And I'm going to go order it at Ulta Labs and you're going to get in trouble. Because we feel a little more empowered to ask for things. It's like we have a reason that's tangible. We had a reason before, but now we have a really tangible reason. And we can even relate some of those symptoms to things that are unrelated to our cycle if we're tracking them. Like we might find that maybe the migraine doesn't seem to be cyclical to my menstrual cycle, but it does seem to be cyclical to something else. Every day that I have had my protein shake, I had a migraine, but I was tracking my protein shake because maybe I'm tracking exercise. And, I decided to start tracking my migraine, but we don't want to make it too complicated. But there are some classic things that many women decide to track, such as pain, period pain, breast tenderness. Migraines is actually a big one that people do track. And sometimes people track, especially formerly diagnosed PCOS, now PMOS, track how much sugar they're eating. I see a
Mm,
lot of women track, like, this day I ate a lot of sugar. I also felt like garbage that day. So there's like key things
yeah.
people love to tack on.
And you described this when we were kind of talking in our prep call, but we have learned as humans, like, oh, I feel like a cold's coming on because I feel congested and like I have a cough. I'm physically coughing. So I think I'm getting sick. So we correlate those symptoms and listen and know those things. So why not do the same when we cycle track to know, okay, I'm feeling X and Y. And so that means that my period's coming.
It's exactly right. We really become familiar with other symptoms that our bodies have, especially like you said, we were describing how we know that a cold is coming on. I can tell that I need to give myself more sleep because I'm feeling so tired or whatever symptoms that you get. I will sometimes get a little more anxiety when I'm sleepy, like too sleepy. And we don't really know what that looks like with a menstrual cycle and how to take a look at that and say, well, this must be happening because this. I notice this spotting at the end of my cycle. I must be losing progesterone early. Why could that be? Is something going on in my diet and I need to support this function? Am I deficient? Am I entering the early stages of my transition into the cessation of periods, which is my way of saying, am I entering perimenopause? We can see those things, but we often don't know what they mean. And when we don't know what things mean and we're confused, we're usually afraid. Confusion makes us scared. But we can be certain. We could be. We just have to learn this as another skill.
And so what do you think shifts when women begin paying attention?
So many things change. I feel like when people start tracking their cycle, I notice them taking initiative in caring for themselves more and
Mhm.
differently. When they do finally understand, oh, I know I'm in my follicular phase and I haven't ovulated yet, they will be more inclined to do something that's estrogen supportive or just supportive of how they're feeling in that moment. And the same in the luteal phase, they know for sure that they've ovulated and they're like, oh, I'm definitely in my luteal phase. How can I support myself? And even some of the stuff that I say I don't like cycle syncing, what's good about it is that it's creating an awareness for people and they are second guessing their lifestyle at the moment. They're second guessing the go, go, go metaphorical high estrogen lifestyle and considering resting again. And, I think that's great. Everyone could use a nap.
For someone who's like A type, always feels like I've got to be doing something to be productive, I've over the last couple months tried to recognize like, why am I overly tired? I'm not cycle tracking, but I'm like, why am I overly tired? Is it because I'm doing too much? Or like maybe just listen to your body and just sit down for 30 minutes because I never allowed that in the past. Or like once everything's over, just sit and relax and unplug. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't allow that for myself, and if I did cycle track, it would probably connect with the same time every single month, but when I hit that, I'm just like, I'm just using other things that are happening in my life as the reason why I'm feeling that way versus maybe recognizing because 'cause I'm tracking that I feel like this because of what my body's doing right now, and so, yeah, like, lay down. Don't feel
Well, and
guilty.
then we see all those outside things as contributors and
Yeah.
rather than causes. Where it's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I'm going through this particular time in my cycle, but I've also scheduled X, Y, Z, and A, B, and C. Surely I have overscheduled. I've overdone it, and these things aren't at fault, but I can take a little more responsibility that, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that." And when I decide to take responsibility, I can then change it. That's the beauty of it is the next cycle I can say, "I won't do that again."
Yeah, I won't be doing all those things that I would did in the past. So maybe we'll take a couple steps back because people might be like, okay, you just talked about a method with basal body temperature and cervical fluid, but like, okay, how do I even do that? So can we maybe start with basal body temperature? What exactly is that? What is that telling us? How do I do it? Is it a special thermometer? You said we should do it like what time of the day? All that, does all that matter?
Yeah, so all of those things matter. The
Okay.
practice is actually really simple, but you do have to follow the guidelines of how to do it. First of all, basal body temperature is your temperature upon waking, immediately upon waking.
Oh, okay.
So to get this temperature, you
Doesn't
must,
matter what time. What if I wake up at 7 a.m. one day and 5 a.m. the other? It doesn't matter. Just
yeah,
when I
still
wake up.
take it. Ideally, if you can, if you're able to get it at the same time every morning, that's better, even more accurate, but you will learn. You'll learn your body. We always, with my students, I will always tell them, try to take it at the same time within 30 minutes. So if you wake up at 8, 7:30 is great, 7 is still good, 8:30 is great, but try to get it right
But
around.
don't take it at noon. That is not
Right,
good.
now we're done at if you slept till noon, still take your temperature because you need that practice and the habit forming, and there's a place to mark on your chart if you took it at an irregular time. So if you took it at noon, just you'll note in the chart that you took it at a different time, maybe 5 hours later if you get up at 7. But so we wanna try to get it around the same time, and you will learn with charting how much time affects your body's temperature. If you get a few that are out of your normal window, you'll see how much it affects you. So we'll want it at the same time, and we'll always want to take it with a thermometer that reads for at least 30 seconds. And I've got mine. It's just a little Walgreens guy.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be fancy.
No. And in fact, I
You're not sticking
not.
in what, right? You're sticking in your mouth.
No, yeah, just to the mouth. Some people do
Not
choose.
like the infant temp.
Oh yeah, no. No. That yeah, rectally no, thermometer no, or
Not in your
thermometer.
vagina.
Forehead no, armpit no, ear no. You can take it vaginally.
Oh, okay.
Not I mean, I know only 2 people in my entire we have a alumni group with my graduating program, and only 2 and they're doing it vaginally, but you can, orally or vaginally. We want the thermometer to read for at least 30 seconds, so 30 to 60, which means no fever thermometers, no quick reads, because those have an algorithm inside. They're
Mm,
only taking your temperature to tell you fever, no fever, fever, no fever.
okay, so 30 seconds.
30 seconds at least for your temperature read. And those thermometers are easy to find. They're at Target, they're at Walmart, they're at Walgreens, Any pharmacy should have one, and they will be the most affordable one, which is why I always recommend them.
Mm.
Fancy gadgets aren't always best. Fancy sometimes also gives too much information. Like if you bought the Walgreens Basal body temperature thermometer, it's like $40 and it reads to the hundredth of a degree. So that's two numbers after the decimal. Then you have to round. Who wants to round? You could just get a regular thermometer
At
that
97.5.
yep,
That's all.
that's all you need. That's all you need.
And you really see fluctuations?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Quite interesting.
Absolutely. And it's the coolest thing. And it's such a simple thing to add to your routine. As soon as you open your eyes, I reach over my hand to my nightstand, I grab my thermometer, put it in my mouth, it beeps, I put it back. I usually go back to sleep. And I recommend a lot of people do that. If you get up,
How do you know the temperature?
so most thermometers will save it. And if you hold the power button down, it will just pull up your last temperature.
Oh, okay.
So most thermometers do that nowadays, but definitely read on your thermometer, does it save one temp? And
Gotcha.
then I will go, once I get up and I get ready and I do all that, I'll go check my thermometer and write it onto my chart when I've
And what is this telling you? Your body's temperature is telling you what?
So the temperature lets us know in hindsight that we did ovulate. It confirms ovulation. So
Because your body temperature will be high or low. Which
it
one?
will shift higher after we ovulate. A lot of women who are using natural cycles were only charting temperature on there. They think this fertility sign can clue them into when they're going to ovulate. It's not. This won't tell you anything about when will I ovulate? I might ovulate tomorrow. No, we have no idea of that.
Mhm.
Once we see the temperature shift and we see it stay, it can't come back and stay down. If it stays, we know we ovulated. So
Okay.
this confirms that for us.
Well, let's bring the other player into this then, the cervical fluid.
So cervical fluid, this is what drives me nuts. I know this episode is not just bashing natural cycles, but this drives me nuts about that app. They state on their website in the fine print that they don't use cervical fluid as a biomarker and that they don't see a reason to. Cervical fluid is the biomarker that clues us in to when we will ovulate. Of course, it cannot tell us tomorrow's the day, but we see it begin to change in quality and quantity, getting more and more fertile, or AKA more watery, slippery, thin, clear. And that's how we can know, oh, I am not having unprotected sex today, because we got a lot of clear fluid. Or the opposite, if you're trying to conceive and you're using natural cycles, they're keeping from you the most important signal that you need. If you're seeing egg white fluid, it doesn't matter if you hold the belief that, well, I always ovulate around day 14. Okay, well,
But
it's
your
a good,
cervical fluid is saying otherwise. Can we
yeah.
talk through the phases then of what it should look like? Consistency, color, if there's an odor. What's the prime go time for some and no time for others?
I always try to preface this kind of information with this disclaimer that our bodies are incredibly unique. And when I work with women one on one, it takes 3 to 6 cycles before they understand their cervical fluid. It will be different. And I can give keywords and things to look for, but no one really knows until they start observing and they're like, oh, wait, you said yours looks lotiony, but mine looks like ointment, looks like, I don't know, some kind of ointment
And
salve.
that's when like listening and learning about your own body is really helpful here. So that's good to know. 3 to 6 months really before you can truly fully understand and know. You can't just like do it for a month and then be like, all right,
I
why
just
is this
know.
working? Yeah. Okay.
You gotta really look at it. And a lot of women too, we send pictures. So they'll send pictures to me and say, this is white and it is thick. It's not slippery. It's not clear. It's not watery, but it's stretched like this, Julie. I stretched it like this. I was like, then it is super fertile because it's stretchy. So typically in a typical menstrual cycle, we'll start with this particular type of cervical fluid we refer to as little f. So it's fertile, but it's a little fertile. And
Okay.
it's usually looking like hair conditioner or yogurt or lotion. It's white or just thick, globby, that kind of adjective to describe. But as we get more and more fertile, we experience a second type that we call big F. So it's much more fertile, and it's categorized by the 4 words: slippery, stretchy, watery, clear. It doesn't have to be all 4, but if it's any of the 4, it's the big kahuna.
That's when you're most fertile, when you'd want to have
Yeah,
sex, become pregnant, or avoid if you don't.
yes. And if you're avoiding, we have a lot of rules that, like, we wouldn't have unprotected sex with any cervical fluid unless we would. I might still enjoy sex with a backup.
Gotcha.
If I'm trying to avoid pregnancy, any cervical fluid is fertility.
Okay.
And we tell people who are trying to conceive the same thing. If you see any cervical fluid, you're fertile. Chance is there. But
You'd be
if
a little F. You might not be a big F, but you'd be a little F.
Yes, and people can get pregnant with little f. Even though we consider this to be slightly less fertile, it's still building up.
Mhm.
Estrogen's there, and this fluid can keep sperm alive for up to 5 days. So if you have a short follicular phase, you could ovulate within 5 days of seeing that little f, and you could have kept someone going. So the chance is there. So we have some rules for contraception, whereas we have guidelines for trying to conceive.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Can you talk about that a little bit? You called it something like a risk tolerance, but
Our scale of intentions.
or scale of intentions, yeah.
I teach this in my class series, and I use it as a tool with women all the time because women, so different from men, and I know how I sound. I sound very heteronormative. I definitely use women-centric language in my classes. It's just my way.
Yeah.
Women, so different from men. Within heterosexual couples, women, we really need to see this scale. So I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll explain what we do differently. The scale of pregnancy intentions is basically, I just have a little bar graph, 0 to 10. 0 is telling me, if you land here on the scale of intentions, that you cannot have a pregnancy. You absolutely do not want that. In fact, if you got pregnant, you would probably terminate. No. Whereas a 10 is, oh yeah, I wish I could be pregnant now. I'd like to have a baby tomorrow. And we're all somewhere along it.
Mhm.
And it's important, if you're going to get serious about charting your cycle, for especially for contraception, you figure out where you are, because that's going to hold you to your value and your boundary with intimacy. If I'm at a 0, a 1, or a 2, I'm sorry, but I mean, if I'm a 0, I should be abstaining. But if I'm a 1 or a 2, we're using a backup method in my fertile window. So it's telling us how to decide
That backup method is what?
whatever you want, whatever is comfortable for you, that you have learned about, chosen with your partner. So if you chose a condom and you're comfortable with assuming now the failure rate of a condom, which is like 88%, I think.
A failure rate is 88%?
Or it's a success rate of 88. The studies on condoms, though, we have are poor. We are studying condom use throughout an entire cycle. Now, you can't get pregnant in an entire cycle. You can get pregnant in your fertile window. So if you're choosing a condom as your backup in your fertile window, you're assuming the worst case scenario with a condom in your fertile window.
Mhm.
So we always think about that when we're choosing the backup. So another backup, one that I love to teach about, is creative lovemaking. We might not have sperm, cervical fluid, anything near each other, penis, vagina. We just choose to be creative in other ways, to be
Okay.
intimate and to be sexual and to be erotic. There's all kinds of things you could do. You could use the new Phexi pH gel if you're comfortable with their failure rates. You could use a diaphragm, but you should definitely use it with spermicide if you're comfortable with that failure rate. But if someone's a 0, I'm always letting them know every method can fail. And a lot of these barriers, you're in your fertile window, so you might want to choose to abstain or be creative. We use the scale to choose, and in my class series, we learn about all these different methods that you might couple with fertility awareness, and when in your cycle you might couple it. If you're a 0, you might not be comfortable at all and you might abstain. If you're in these earlier infertile days, but you're nervous, you might still take a precaution. Maybe you would use withdrawal, maybe you'd use a condom, but you haven't hit fertility yet, so you might do something different at a different point.
I have a question. What if you're on the pill does cycle tracking change? What if you have an IUD? Does cycle tracking matter?
That is really a great question. So, within my alumni from the Well School of Body Literacy, we are always looking for more data from women who are on the pill or on an IUD or using an implanted device or doing Depo or something like that, because we are hungry to know what's going on your chart. Like most of these hormonal contraceptives, we're not cycling at all. There's nothing's happening hormonally. It's a flat line situation. So we're not seeing any ovulation. We're not seeing anything
We're not seeing that when what?
when we're using most hormonal contraception.
Okay.
Most hormonal contraceptions turn down that whole hypothalamus pituitary gonad
Oh, okay.
axis. So we don't see anything that, like I'm describing, you won't have an ovulation temp shift. You'll just have a flat line.
All right. So if I took my basal temp and I'm on the pill or IUD, or then it would be just consistent because the synthetic hormone is basically telling my body just like don't.
Turn it off.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about cervical fluid? Will that stay the same?
It will typically stay the same too. What we're curious about is every woman seems so different. Some women, they're just dry all the time. Other women, they're just wet all the time. They have cervical fluid constantly, but it's like the luteal mucus type where it's thick, it's acidic, it's lotiony. They don't see a peak and a valley. They just have a baseline of constant
So
something.
this cycle tracking that you're talking about is really for women who do not have those.
Yeah, with hormonal contraceptive, again, for the most part, there's some progestin-only pills and certain IUD, the copper IUD, will allow for some ovulations, but you don't know when and
Why
if,
would it allow for ovulation if it's supposed to?
because it's healthier for our bodies to be exposed to progesterone, but then they act in other ways as a contraceptive. The copper IUD has multiple mechanisms of action. It thickens the cervical mucus so that it's inhospitable for sperm. And it's releasing like cytotoxins that are not great for our tissue, but because it's not great for our tissue, it's not great for sperm. And then copper and estrogen have a really interesting relationship too. So it can also hormonally change whether or not we're ovulating too. So sometimes we're getting ovulation still, but the pregnancies are prevented in other ways.
Gotcha. Interesting. So I didn't realize, and this is maybe ignorant on my part, taking a pill, for instance, it's not allowing your body to ovulate. And this might make more sense. That's why you're told to get off birth control months, a year before you actually trying to conceive so your body can try to get back to that regular cycling. I personally think, and again, this is my personal opinion, listeners, that there's so much infertility now in mid 30s, 40s because we were put on the pill at a young age and were on it for so many years. Because I was on it for like 10 years
Oh, wow.
before I conceived because I did not want, right? I was a zero. But that led to complications for me because it took way longer to get pregnant. I always wondered if it was as a result of that. So if my body is not like doing what it should be doing naturally every single month, how would it know when I'm ready then what to do?
Exactly. I mean, that's a very common perspective that you just shared. There are a lot of people who are speculating that, especially for women in our age group in 30s and 40s now that had been using the pill for a long time. A lot of those people are using IVF to conceive now. And unfortunately, there's a really great statistic out now. I'll have to find and link it that's showing that teen pregnancies are the lowest they've ever been. And this is very exciting news in the media that teens are not getting pregnant anymore. And with it, women in their 40s are conceiving more than ever before. But if you read between the lines, these aren't good things. Women in their 40s are only conceiving more now because they couldn't conceive in their 30s and finally turned to IVF in the 40s. It's actually very spooky, like Glass Mirror to me, very spooky.
Yeah. And then teens, because why?
Again, now my personal belief with teens, they're not interested in sex because they are on devices and they're disconnected from human relationships. And not that I'm saying teen sex is good. I mean, my sister was 17 when she had a baby, and that was very hard for her. However, there is another piece of, are we going very far from that? And now we're actually disinterested because libido as a teen is a very normal and healthy thing.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure,
Which
but
is, like, could be a whole nother conversation because I've also heard that because they have access to so many things that, like, real sex isn't
it's just
because it's, like, sensualized to the extreme because they have access to so many things that are not normal,
that's
that
right.
normal isn't actually fun
It's not
or, because it's like, "Oh, that's what normal is? But I just saw that happen. Isn't that what's supposed to happen?" And it's, like, not realistic, and so therefore you
Mhm.
can't enjoy it like a normal teenage boy should. Or I mean girl, by the way, not just it's not just about
Oh, for sure.
but yeah, anyways, that's some of the things that I've heard, and it makes me wonder even thinking about my own I did not have exposure to any of the stuff that kids do nowadays, but just I know so many people who've been on the pill for a really, really long time and then have a really hard time.
That is very,
And I
very
apps, by the way, so now I'm like which I wanna talk about in a second, but sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
oh, no, you're good. I was just gonna say that that is a very common anecdotally I hear a lot with
Yeah,
a lot of my trying to conceive clients, and they're all 36 or older. They've all been on the pill for a very long time. Not just me in my practice, but my colleagues too, and alumni who've graduated. We see this a lot. So while the studies might not be robust, from our perspective, what we see in anecdotal evidence, there's a lot of it.
yeah.
It's very sad.
Well, with cycle tracking, ladies, younger ladies can be an alternative so that you are preparing for the future.
That's
So,
right. That's
so
we
that you can control what's going on, and then in the future, you maybe won't have as many issues. And I'm not saying using those is gonna cause the issues, right? But there's like you said, just
There's some correlation. I
yeah.
think causation, we don't know, but we are seeing the correlation for sure.
Let's talk about apps. You mentioned a little bit that same I can't remember the name of it,
Yeah, natural
earlier. Like, what are the pros and cons of the apps? You kind of insinuated a little bit, but I think it's important because I just kind of like let nature run its course when we were trying to conceive, and then it
Mhm.
wasn't happening. And then I was like, okay, then I'm going to cycle track. And I had thought in my head, I'm just going to use an app. So I put in the day of my first period, right? But tell me why that maybe isn't ideal.
Some of those apps, especially the earlier ones, like in the 2010s and all this, I know there was like Ovograph and Daisy. There's a couple more that were earlier, like prototypes of apps that do this based on the day of your bleed. The thing is that that is just a really technologically advanced rhythm method. We're just calculating when we think there might be fertility without actually seeing the biodata to prove fertility. So there's that piece. And then as the technology is improved, the thing is, the technology has improved, not necessarily the understanding of the body. So we have now apps like Natural Cycles that are essentially really fancy technological rhythm
Hmm.
methods because we're not looking at cervical fluid with that. We're only doing cycle length and temperature. Now, temperature does, like we said, give really great data, but we are only seeing ovulation in hindsight. Otherwise, Natural Cycles is predicting what it thinks your cycle will do based on your previous cycles. Whereas when you're learning body literacy practice and you're getting to know your body, you know without a shadow of a doubt that even though you ovulated on day 13 last cycle, that doesn't mean you're going to do it again. It doesn't even mean it will be day 14 or 15. You could
Because
have
you're tracking every day, and then you can look month to month and see how different it is.
yeah, and extenuating circumstances play more of a role than people realize. And I mean, like traveling, job changes, even things like diet and alcohol. These things can affect our body in so many ways and delay ovulation and change what we would otherwise have thought would happen. So, natural cycles to me, the downfall is that it is still predicting and it's based on past fertility, but we know that past fertility doesn't determine future fertility by any means, and especially as we get into being a little older and perimenopause is beginning, our cycles are naturally shifting,
Mhm.
and the shifts in the beginning are incredibly subtle, and the app does not know how to account
Navigate
for
that, yeah.
these things. So that's what stinks about it. The pros, I guess, would be that it's convenient.
So, like,
I was like, what is the pro?
so
What is it?
far
It's
mhm.
convenient. I've got a couple girlfriends that use it and haven't gotten pregnant. So that's a good sign. And they find it to be convenient. For me, being an incredibly frugal person, part of me is like, but you're a victim of
Mhm.
being subjected to paying the fee of the app forever. If you don't learn your body, then you're relying on the app, then you're paying $150 a year or $21.99 a month to do this when you could do it for free. It blows my mind because my parents are old Polish people and they're like, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Who would spend the money?" But now I'm like that. Who would spend the money? When you
Are there apps that you trust more than others that you could recommend to somebody that they don't mind spending the money and they just would like that convenience?
Well, there's only one, but yes, it's
Okay.
called Read Your Body.
Okay.
And this app, I love it because it is a nonprofit. It's by women, it's for women. So the people behind it, literally the people driving the tech, are women. We are in immediate direct communication with the founder of the app. She's really nice. They have templates for every fertility awareness method you can think of. So, from all the obscure things that you heard me say earlier, they have
Mhm.
all those in there. Cycle mapping is in there. They've worked directly with my teacher and with me as her assistant to build us
Amazing.
the template. They're great. And then not only that, but this app is fully HIPAA compliant. They don't sell data. They don't offer this to
Which
anybody.
the other apps can.
Oh yeah, yes. And it's
Is what?
sensitive.
Then you're gonna get targeted on social media for feminine products,
Yep.
IVF clinics, all the things.
Yep, absolutely. And even more insidious, there's talk about this data going places because it's energy, it's temperature, it's mucus. They can look at how optimal people are. Maybe not me as an individual, but me in a geographic location with others
Oh.
compared to me. I just am not interested in taking my chances.
Yeah.
So this app does not sell any data. They make money, I think, from contributions. They're a nonprofit. So
Yeah. Okay.
HIPAA compliant. And then on top of it, there is no optional algorithm that you turn on, like with temp drop, you can turn on, turn off. There's no toggle, there's no algorithm. You must learn a method. And then you chart your method on this digital piece of paper in your phone. And that's what I like about it. I also like that it's much more affordable, so much easier to see in your YNAB account than to see natural cycles because it's $12.99, I think. Or I think it might be for like a year, $20.99 or something
Yeah,
crazy.
so
I
it's
don't
like a
think it's 12
no-brainer.
anymore, but it's very affordable. Now I feel like I must look it up for our listeners, but it's so much cheaper. Okay, yeah, it's $20.99 per year or $269 per month. They offer a 30-day free trial. And what's great about it too is that you can ask most fertility awareness educators. Almost all of us love this app. So almost all of us are listed on their directory. So almost all of us can offer you the app for free for several months to
Oh,
try
that's great.
on.
That's great.
Their business model is just so friendly. It actually shows a little bit of depth that they care truly about women's bodies. So I support them, but I don't use the app because I don't like using apps.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's again, your own personal choice, right? Before we close, I want to talk about in a very important role in all of this, which is the one of the male. In
Yes.
fertility. Other than providing the sperm, like what role do they really play in fertility awareness? I feel like sometimes, a majority of the time, it's like, okay, now we're trying to conceive or not to conceive. And because you're the womb carrier,
Yeah.
it's your responsibility. So let's flip that on its head because it's not. It takes two to tango. What's their role? How should couples be having conversations? I think we talked about couples should be having conversations about that scale, right? Where are you at on that scale? And then are we doing things that match your
Yeah. So that's
that
exact.
we won't end up pregnant and then you're like, absolutely not. And then the woman's left on her own, forced to make decisions maybe she doesn't want to. So
It is tricky. So, on the gentleman's side, what's really important is that if a woman in a heterosexual relationship decides she wants to chart her cycle for whatever reason, it's important that this guy's on board. Most of them are, but they just don't know, like you said, what is their role. So, as long as he's on board and he's ready, because this is now a commitment between two people, if we're going to be having sex without any kind of backup for any reason at any point in the cycle, we all need to be comfortable. So The psychoeducation that I provide to women is available for their male counterparts. They're always welcome to come in one-on-one sessions, but there's other ways to get the education, and they should get the psychoeducation. Then they need to understand the method. They need to know what's happening so that they can feel comfortable and confident too, because despite how men present, they can be very fragile and sensitive beings.
Mhm.
And when we say to them, it's okay, you don't have to use a condom, he may be freaking out. He's like, oh, I don't know. This feels so foreign and wrong. I've never done this. I'm really scared. Is this okay? Like, if we're not trying to conceive, this is terrifying. So,
Or then what happens between the two if you're like, we're good, don't use it, and then you end up pregnant? There could be a
yeah,
major trust issue, right?
we all have to be on the same page. It's like such a big deal that I think when women are getting into it, they're like, oh, he'll adjust. It's like, help him adjust. This guy is terrified right now. Like, you both have to learn this. So that's a big piece. Both learning, both understanding, both knowing how to read the chart. Now, at the end of the day, when the education foundation is laid, it is her responsibility to chart her cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's her responsibility to chart it, to write it down, to check it, to do it correctly. Unfortunately, there's not a lot he can do. For me and my partnership, there was a couple of year-long period where my partner would wake up, because he wakes up better than I do. He'd wake up, put my thermometer into my mouth, let it beep, and take it out and put it back. And so there are little ways that men can assist with practical
Mm-hmm.
how-tos, but for the most part, she's committing to that, whereas he has a whole other set of physiology that he needs to commit to. And there is this wonderful essay called Ejaculate Responsibly, and everybody needs to read it because it's true. He needs to understand his own physiology to be able to ejaculate responsibly. If for any reason he's uncomfortable or unsure, he can say no too.
Mm-hmm.
If for any reason she's uncomfortable and unsure, she says no. He decides with whom, where, when does he ejaculate. And not just in a one-on-one intimate experience, not just in sexual intercourse with another person, with a person with a vagina, but also when he's choosing to ejaculate privately, because that impacts his future fertility.
Hmm.
If he ejaculates personally and then decides to have vaginal sex, there will be sperm in his pre-cum if he didn't take the necessary hygienic precautions to get rid of them. So he's affecting his own future fertility, and that needs to be known. And in fact, there is a subsection of men alive today who genetically always have sperm in their pre-cum. So doing a sperm analysis is great because you can test pre-cum for sperm too.
Sure.
So knowing some of these things about yourself, but also about your physiology, is important for him. He needs to be responsible for that if he's choosing
You think
this.
most men know these things?
Oh, I don't think men know about any of this. I think when it
Just
comes
like
to,
women are not educated. It's just like, it's amazing how we walk around and
and everything is so under wraps and so embarrassing and so shameful to talk about to boys about masturbation or about ejaculating. And it's like, well, if you don't talk to him about it, either someone's gonna, and it's not gonna be you, and you don't know what they're gonna say, or no one will, and he will go on irresponsibly ejaculating without even thinking, because he was trained to think that an unplanned pregnancy would be her fault and her responsibility, and he could walk away scot-free. But if we taught him and appeal to them, appeal to a gentleman's brain, you are so powerful. You have the power. Strong and mighty. You can impregnate multiple times in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. Would you choose to impregnate that often if you can? Because you can. And if you wouldn't, you have to be responsible for that. You are impregnating someone. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah.
but they don't hear that. We hear things even on Gilmore Girls. She got pregnant. That TRAMP.
Yeah.
How could
I mean, it's
she?
so true.
Like, she
What about
stole.
their role in it all, you know? Yeah.
So there's a lot of education that needs to change, and it's never too late to initiate educating. I see husbands and boyfriends in my sessions, and it's never too late for them. I hear the things they say. I hear them say out in my sidewalk events that this work is not for them. Ooh, as they push their baby in a stroller next to their wife. And I challenge them to say, is that not your baby? in the
Yeah.
stroller and your wife beside you, because if yes, this is for you.
Yeah. It's for everybody.
It's for everybody.
Knowledge is power. This case, knowledge could be prevention.
I was just thinking that exact same phrase. So I was like, knowledge is prevention. We're preventing unwanted, undesired pregnancies. We're preventing undesired abortions. We're preventing undesired infertility journeys and so much more
Yeah.
with this practice. And that's just the surface level. It doesn't even get into.
And if you are young, you're teaching young girls to listen to the signals of their body. And you're teaching women the same. And they're connecting maybe with their bodies in a way that they didn't. I used to be like, I would never do all that stuff. That's like what hippy dippy people do.
I know.
Now I'm like, wow, this actually could help me get to the bottom of really figuring out what is wrong with my period.
Isn't that funny though, how we were really trained that hippy dippy? I said the same thing. That hippie is pouring her menstrual blood into her plants. Crazy. Guess who pours menstrual blood into plants now?
You do.
So it's like
It's hippie. You're embracing it.
we've come fully around, full circle with it. And also once you hear this, I hate using the word science in this way, but once you hear the science behind all this, my menstrual blood contains the most nourishing cells in my body, vital stem cells. Universities are trying to buy it.
Yeah, I heard that.
And at this point, that old hippie's garden is blooming and I can't grow a tomato. And so I know what I must do.
You must embrace your inner hippie.
Yes.
Yeah. Or which is now outer. And that's totally fine. Right.
Right. And that's part of it is like this work encompasses all of it. We talk about the phases of the moon corresponding with our cycle. We chart it if we want to. And we talk about all the basic physiological and biological fact of what's happening here. And we put it together because that's what women do.
Yeah.
We take some boring stuff and we turn it into something great. We always do it. We take boring vegetables and we make a really delicious dinner. We take boring eggs and sperm and we make people. We take houses and we make them homes.
Yeah.
And that is what we do.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So, Julie, after all this great education, if people are like, I'd love to work with her, I want more information, what is the best way that they can reach out to you or interact with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. I'm the Cycle Lady, and that's also my email address, thecyclelady@outlook.com. I'm very old school, so emailing me is like my number one way. But if you go to my website, thecyclelady.com, you will also find right at the top of the page that you can get a discovery call with me, and that's always free.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's what I hope everyone that's listening takes away from today's conversation. Cycle tracking isn't about perfection and it isn't about just pregnancy. It's really learning about our bodies, because when we start paying attention to the signals our bodies are giving us with curiosity instead of frustration, we begin building trust with ourselves. And maybe that's why so many women were never taught that our bodies were never working against us. They've just been communicating all along. So thank you, Julie, so much for all your time, not just with this episode, but for our other 2 episodes in educating women and young girls. The work you do is so incredibly powerful.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah. And to everyone listening, if this conversation resonated and you're thinking of someone in your mind, please share. It's probably what they need to hear right now. Follow my show, leave a review, and as always, stay curious, stay empowered, but most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone. If today's conversation left you feeling curious about your own health, inspired to make a change, or simply wanting to reconnect with yourself, I'd love to support you. At Women's Wellness Authority, my mission is to help women reconnect with themselves through health, healing, and community. Whether that's through a restorative sound healing experience, a one-on-one energy alignment session, or the educational resources I share, my goal is to help you better understand your body, regulate your nervous system, and create sustainable wellness, one small step at a time. To learn more, explore upcoming events, or find the next step that's right for you, visit womenswellnessauthority.com.
Please note, the information shared on the Women's Wellness Authority podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or replace medical advice. Always consult your qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your healthcare routine.